He's just paying a bill. He's just paying it sooner. Okay.
Oh, perhaps along with the growth. What if you need to add another bookkeeper just to keep track of this stuff, and that adds costs right there?
So these are the things you need to understand, because there's going to be cases where you believe they've got the internal controls, you believe they're running great, and you believe that it's a capital deficiency. There's going to be others where you think we don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the history, and so it's important to really think through who this guy is and what he's got.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, you know, and in a case like this, what you might want to do, and we'll talk about structure and, you know, what all your suggestions were, but maybe what you do is you come up with some sort of a compromise. You get comfortable with your coverages. You get comfortable with your collateral support. And then you say, okay, prove to me. Let's see what kind of discounts. Let's see how you handle it. Let's see how you're paying us back. Let's see how fast you're turning your receivables, how quickly you're turning your inventory, how quickly you're turning your payables. And maybe this is something that over time with an RM, because a line of credit this size is going to have a relationship manager, perhaps the RM starts working with them to get that line of credit increased over time. But I really doubt that the way you'd want to structure this immediately would be to use that plug figure of, where's it, Lynn, back here? The $1,788,000, or the $1,709,000 rather. I doubt very much that you're going to get this borrower qualified and approved for a $1.7 million line of credit, because there's just too much risk involved there.
That accounts payable number is not a correct calculation either, because only 60% of his vendors offer it. So if you multiply that out and how much he has to distribute that 60%, he only needs about $280,000 to take advantage of that 60%.
Right. Yep.
It offers the trade discount.
Yeah. So what do you think? I think where were we at on this? We were at structure. Okay, we'll talk about price in a minute. Okay, so we're talking about structure. So what are some of the suggestions? Let's just throw out, Val, what did you come up with? Okay, I'm sorry. I'll go back one. I don't want to get to price yet. What did it do? Okay, let's still talk about structure. How big of a line did you come up with? 800,000 accounts receivable line. Can everybody take out their financing gap worksheets for a second? Okay. Everybody should have them. You should have 4. You should have, and we're really going to, do you need some? I think she didn't get any right there, her packet. Okay. Okay, hang on. There's 4 scenarios here. There's 2 scenarios that say 98 projections, A and B. So there's 2 scenarios, A and B. And then there's 2 scenarios from 97 using historical numbers, A and B. Okay? So
They just got a blank one.
what we're really concerned about is, don't we want to try to help this customer attain some growth and mainly do what? In my opinion, is the priority here to allow this borrower to take advantage of every single discount offered to him? To me, that's more like, that would be icing on the cake. What's the real crux of what we're trying to do? Enable this Mr. Mays to do what? Nikki? Pay his suppliers and do what with them? Take the heat off of them. Get the heat, they're putting heat on him. He wants to relieve himself from that and to appease them and get them more, so that the AP turn is more in line with the industry norms. And especially with his product, what?
Right.
Right? And what are we trying to do as far as distribution of his products? We talked about that. Make sure that he has the exclusive right to distribute these products. And chances are, if we allow the 76-day AP turn to continue, that will be revoked, okay, in some cases. So my thought when I was looking at the deal was, how can we get comfortable with collateral? How can we get comfortable with debt service coverage? We'll need to get comfortable with pricing. And how can we do that and make ourselves comfortable, but at the same time, we need to make him comfortable, okay? So how do we make him comfortable? And Val, you said $800,000, okay? On your very first, on projection A, your 98 projections?
Did you guys get all the projections? No, they don't have them.
They don't have this?
No, they only have the blanks. Yeah.
Oh, okay, great. Well, let's do it on the flip chart. Lynn will pass them out, Barry will pass them out. Okay, so Val, you had an $800,000 line of credit. What did you come up with on your financing gap worksheet? As far as turns?
Yeah.
Everybody got them?
Yeah.
You guys got yours? Has everybody got them? Okay, thank you. Okay, so everybody should have it by now. Let's look at 98 projections A. Okay, need some over here. Okay, the inventory turn is how long? Based on projections? 35-day inventory turn. Okay, once you've sold your inventory, how long is it taking you to collect on average your receivable turn? 60 days. Okay, and if you were to do an $800,000 line, basically I had a 783 because I worked backwards into it. But this was with the payable turn of 65 days. You therefore had a financing gap of 30 days. Your annual cost of goods in this case was how much for 98 projection? It's like $8,064,000. That's on your projected income statement. Everybody has that. $8,064,000. That's your annual cost of goods sold. Your annual operating expenses were how much? $1,344,000. Okay, so if you add that up and divide by 360, your daily financing need was $26,133. Okay, this is real important because I think this is a good tool you guys can use out in the field with your customer and show them, you know, this is how fast you're turning your receivables, your inventories, how fast you're turning your payables. Here's what your purchases are, or your cost of goods rather. Here's what your operating expenses are. And you can kind of show them what they need to run their business. Now there's a big assumption. A balance sheet is a blank at a point in time. What do we call it? It's a snapshot or a picture at a point in time on that specific day. Okay? So one of the problems you run about always just assuming, and that's one thing I don't like about CDS, because you get all these ratios with inventory turn, receivable turn, so on and so forth. All that means is that on December 31st, or if their fiscal year end is June 30th, means that at that point in time, that's how fast they, based on what their receivable balances were, based on what their cost of goods, or based on what their inventory balances were, and so on and so forth, their payables, that's how fast they're turning. What would be really neat is if we had once a quarter, and then we could get a really good view and see how seasonality affects their turns. We don't have that luxury, okay? But this is still a pretty good tool, okay? It's a very good tool. So in this particular case, how fast, what would the payable turn be reduced to on this, using this model here? 65 days, okay? And the line of credit amount would be $800,000 roughly.
Assuming no capital available.
What's that?
Assuming that no capital is available. Because this is basically
Right.
your basic need. Now you're
Right.
going to have to go back and you're going to have to look and see, do I have capital that's available
Right.
to finance this? And in this case, you do.
Right, because their earnings, they're making money. It's not a lot, but they're making some money during the year, and they can use that to keep it in the business to finance assets. Okay? The point is $800,000 would reduce this payable turn to 65 days. Okay, now we've told you that the norm is 45 to 60. Okay, I'm making an assumption that Mays is probably a pretty good customer of most of his vendors. I mean, he does a lot of, he's going to do $7.9 million or $9.6 million in business. Last year he did 7.9. So he's probably a pretty good customer. If you're a vendor and most of your customers are paying you in 45 to 60, which I'm assuming means that some of them are paying in 60, I think you could probably make do with 65. And I think Mr. Mays could probably talk his vendors into, being okay with 65 days.
Can I ask a reality question?
Yeah.
If I brought this to you as an SEO on 98 projection for an account receivable line, I don't mean that facetiously, but
No, I'll tell you what.
if I were to take projections, I wouldn't.
Well, hang on a
But how
second.
do these projections fit in with reality from 1997?
That's right. Because how's
How
the
do
business
these
been
fit?
growing?
It's very consistent with 1997. You've got the funds flow available from your 1997 for 800,000, and you've got enough collateral.
Okay, let me just.
That cover it. You've actually got about 1.31 coverage, and you've got plenty of collateral. So in this particular case, you've got more than enough room to finance your future need. And when you're thinking about structuring, you actually want to be thinking about what their future need is.